Hey, welcome back to Furthering Christendom. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler. Unfortunately, Mike can't make it today, so we will live on and do the show without him, though indeed we look forward to his return. So today I have on Kenneth Boyce, who's one of my favorite epistemologists. Andrew Moon might be here as well. He might pop in. They're my favorite epistemologists. Great guys, good brothers in Christ, and really just respect and love what they're about and what they do. So thanks very much, Kenny, for coming on.
Oh, it's good to be here, Tyler. Thank you.
Yeah, so you have a new paper coming out in an Oxford volume on externalism, and I'm really excited for it. I read it multiple times now and really enjoyed it. But it's a defense of proper functionalism. But perhaps some of the viewers aren't as enlightened as we are, and they haven't heard the good news of proper function. they haven't asked Plantinga into their heart yet. And so for those at home who have no idea what proper functionalism is, can you give us a short kind of description about it as an epistemic theory?
Sure. So according to proper functionalist theories of knowledge, a central component and a necessary condition for having knowledge is that our cognitive faculties that are involved in the formation of our belief, or at least some of them, are functioning properly. That is, functioning in the way that they were meant to function. And this talk of proper function here is the same sort of talk that we might find in biology, say when a doctor or a biologist says that the adult human heart functions properly when it beats at an average of 70 beats per minute. It's that notion of proper function that's at issue here. And another important aspect of this, according to proper functionalists, is that it should be the function of the relevant cognitive faculties, the ones that are functioning properly, to produce true belief. So putting that together, in order to have knowledge, you have to have cognitive faculties that are functioning properly and are aimed at the production of true beliefs.
Awesome, very good. Your IEP article, by the way, for anyone watching this, is really helpful. Good summary of all this and explicates it even more so. So Google IEP Kenneth Boyce, and it'll show up, I'm sure. All right, so there's like an attempted, there are obviously different attempted counterexamples, and I do emphasize the attempted counterexamples, not successful. And one type of counterexample to proper functionalism is this idea that some sort of scenario where someone has actually cognitive malfunction, and yet from this cognitive malfunction, sort of a reliable cognitive process emerges and gets the subject, the epistemic subject, to a lot of true beliefs, right? And then all this sort of results by way of something not working rightly, right? So one of those examples that you mentioned in your paper that you engage is from Tolley's Liz case, precision, it's called. I thought maybe you could explicate that case a little bit and explain how it would be a counterexample to proper functionalism.
Sure. So Tolley's case is a hypothetical case. I should also note that there are real life cases that are similar, where you have subjects with certain kinds of autism or something, for example, that seem to have extraordinary mathematical abilities, and these are proposed as possible counterexamples to proper functionalism. But in our paper, we discuss Tolley's hypothetical case and set up a framework for addressing those real world cases as well. So in Tolley's case, you imagine that there's this normal human, Liz, and one day she gets a hard hit on the eye sockets, and somehow the impact alters the construction of her neural cortex, and her color sensing retinal cones, so that she can now represent double the number of precise color shades. And then on the basis of her sharp visual experiences, she reliably forms beliefs, ascribing, maybe demonstrably, because she doesn't have words for these shades in her language, but ascribing these ultra precise color shades to various objects. And yeah, initially there's some intuition that we have that she gains knowledge on the basis of this new ability, but it doesn't seem that this ability involves properly functioning cognitive faculties. So
Very good. Yeah.
that's
That every time I read this case, by the way, for some reason Liz Jackson pops in my mind. So I'm imagining that her eyes are becoming damaged whenever.
actually, I believe that Liz Jackson was the source of the name, because Tolly and Liz, I think they overlapped at Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's
Perhaps
right.
they discussed these issues. So I think she is in fact the subject of the exam.
That's hilarious. So y'all talk about an explanationist version of proper functionalism, and it having the resources to kind of speak to these sorts of counterexamples, or at least maybe perhaps become immune to these sorts of counterexamples. Can you show me what a sort of explanationist glossing of this looks like?
Right. So let me go ahead and give you our definition of explanationist proper functionalism, and then perhaps try to explain it a bit. So
That's good.
Our definition is that S's belief B is an item of knowledge only if, for some of S's cognitive faculties whose joint exercise contributes to the forming or sustaining of B, the fact that that exercise results in a true belief is teleologically explained. Okay, teleologically explained is a technical term that I could characterize more precisely in a moment. For now, I just want to note that it entails that her beliefs are explained in a certain way via true, or the fact that she got a true belief is explained in a certain way via the fact that at least some of her cognitive faculties were exhibiting truth-aimed cognitive proper function. So what this helps us do with respect to counterexamples is, you might notice when I stated the condition, it's only required that some of the subject's cognitive faculties are functioning properly. And the basic intuitive idea here is, as long as that's the case, then if the fact that they fulfill their truth aim is explained via cognitive proper function, then they can result in the production of knowledge, even if there's malfunction going on elsewhere in the system. Let me also, just to fill things out, let me give you a more precise definition of teleologically explained. So here's our definition of that from the paper. So for any of S's cognitive faculties, the fact that the joint exercise of those faculties results in a true belief is teleologically explained if and only if, during that exercise, those faculties are aimed at the production of true belief, and the fact that they fulfill that aim is explained by the truth-aimed cognitive proper function of those faculties in a way that's attributable to the goodness of S's cognitive design plan.
Great, that's really helpful. So let's bring back the particular Liz case. You say in the paper that we need to like disambiguate the particular case, right? You say that on one interpretation, you could think that Liz could have a warrant because proper function is still involved. Namely, you think that if the cortex can adapt sort of a new neural pathway in accordance with proper function, then her belief would be warranted. However, if it just so happens to sort of encode the right visual information, some sort of reliable process just so happens to encode it to where she's forms these beliefs about, these various colors, then you think that it wouldn't be warranted. Can you kind of walk through this with me a little bit more?
Right. So as kind of an intuitive warm up, let me give you a case that's not the Liz case, but I think where we have intuition that knowledge is not present. So in our paper, we call this the spun clock case. So imagine that Gloria, that's actually the name of my youngest daughter. She has this analog clock in her room, and it's been a reliable indicator of the time. She's looked at it every day. And as a prank, one of her older sisters sneaks into her room. This totally could happen. Takes the clock down from the wall, spins the hands wildly, and then runs away as fast as they can. Maybe they jump out the window so they don't go through the door. She doesn't see them coming out. And she walks into the room, not realizing anything's amiss. And she looks at the clock and forms a belief about what time it is, say it's 8 o'clock. And it turns out that in their hurry, their sister, they spun the hands wildly, but nevertheless, by sheer chance, they happen to land back on the right time. So I think we have an intuition in that case that even though the clock is still reliably tracking the time, and Gloria is forming her belief about what time it is based on the reading of the clock, she still doesn't actually know that it's 8 o'clock. So if you share that intuition, imagine that we have a version of the Liz case that goes like this. Well, imagine first we have one that goes like this. So that Liz takes these hits to her eye sockets, and they become more sensitive to different wavelengths of light. And then there are some processes in her brain that adapt to the fact that she now has a greater amount of information. And this is called for, let's say, by biological proper function, truth-aimed proper function. And that adaptation now allows her to process that information correctly. Well, then we say that in that case, her beliefs, or the fact that she's getting true beliefs, is in fact explained in the relevant way by truth-aimed cognitive proper function. And so this case doesn't give us an example to, or it doesn't give us a counterexample to explanationist proper functionalism. But now imagine this case, the hits, she gets the hit, and it makes it so that she takes in extra information, but it also causes alterations in her visual cortex that are completely random. And it just so happens by chance that they accurately encode the extra information, but it's just a matter of chance that occurs. In that case, it seems like it's just by accident that she's managing to represent the appropriate shades. It doesn't seem like the fact that she's doing that is explained in the right sort of way, or it's not connected in the right sort of way to the fact that, or to what the facts, or to the fact that it's true that those shades are those shades. It just by chance she manages to get at the right sorts of shades.
It's going to be more analogous to your daughter.
Her belief formation is analogous to Gloria's belief formation in the spun clock case. And even though she's reliably forming true beliefs, she doesn't, in fact, have knowledge.
Awesome. That's very clear. So how do you imagine someone like Tolle, how do you think they're going to respond? Some sort of like really hard process reliabilist. What do you think is going to be said?
Yeah, so of course, one thing that could be done is just deny our intuitions about the spun clock case. I mean, your mileage may vary, but I think if you have the intuition in Russell's clock case, which this is a variation of, where in that case, somebody just comes and they look at a stopped clock and it just happened to stop exactly 12 hours ago. And you have the intuition, which is widely shared by epistemologists. And when I present this to undergrads as well, that knowledge isn't present in that case, then I think that you should believe that knowledge isn't present in the spun clock case. And in that, if that's true, then I think you should accept our analogy. But maybe there's a way to try to argue that there's some sort of disanalogy here. So we can imagine two versions of the spun clock case. In one version, Gloria walks into the room just after the spinning has occurred. In that situation, I think we have a stronger intuition that she doesn't know. But imagine she walks into the room several hours later. I found that people's intuitions about whether she knows are a little bit mixed. And perhaps the reason why they're mixed in this case is that her beliefs still seem safe in a way that they weren't safe in the original version of the scenario. Had she just walked in, or I mean, had her sister just moved her finger slightly differently in a few moments before, then she would have read the wrong time. So there are all these nearby possible worlds surrounding that time where she reads the wrong time. But after several hours, the nearby possible worlds surrounding the same few seconds are still all worlds where the clock reads the same time. Now, like I said, mileage may vary with respect to your intuitions here, but I'm inclined to think that if you accept that she doesn't know in the original case, it'd be odd that just by waiting a few hours, even though nothing has changed via the clock's connection to tracking the truth, that she would then know a few hours later. I find that to be an odd thing to say, but that
I totally agree with you. And this is where I think our sort of responses to Tali can complement each other as well. Because in my response to Tali, I talk about someone who's trapped in a room forever, who starts to believe that all these objects in them, have souls in them, right? And he's never going to leave the room, but he's going to be in the room from here on out. But he only believes this because of some sort of cognitive malfunction, right? So it just so happens though that his beliefs are going to correspond with reality, and so you have this safe environment, but yet and you have reliably produced true beliefs, but yet it seems my mileage is such that it seems too serendipitous.
Yeah, that's right. I think the underlying intuition here is that in these bad malfunction cases, there's truth tracking, but it's wholly by accident that truth tracking occurs. And that's not enough for knowledge to be present. There has to be some sort of tighter explanatory relation to the fact that the person's getting at true beliefs in order for it to count as knowledge.
Needs to be a tighter connection between the belief being produced and the belief being true.
That's right. Yes.
Proper function. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, can you tell me a little bit about what you're working on next? Any projects you're putting your mind gears toward?
Well, me personally, at the moment, I'm thinking a lot about whether we have evidence that we live in a multiverse, and in particular, whether fine-tuning provides evidence that we live in a multiverse, but also even whether our mere existence provides evidence that we live in a multiverse. So I'm still in process thinking through the issue, and so we'll see where I land.
You're gonna give us any early spoilers to where you might be headed toward, or where your dispositions are leading you to?
Okay, so I'm fairly convinced that fine-tuning itself does not provide any evidence that we live in a multiverse. There's still a residual question about whether our mere existence provides evidence that we live in a multiverse. The intuitive thought being that the more beings out there in reality there are, the greater chance that we would be among them. And of course, I'm thinking about this with an eye towards the fine-tuning argument for design. And I think that either way, the conclusions that I come to, and I'm working on this, I should mention, with Philip Swenson, I think either way, the conclusions that we come to will end up strengthening the fine-tuning argument from design.
Dope. Love it. Well, thanks very much, Kenny, for coming on. I hope you live long and prosper, and look forward to having you back in the future.
Well, thank you, Tyler.